Hey JD again. The boss and I have been invited to a seminar for Renesas here in Sydney in a couple of weeks. Although I've sort of kept an eye on Renesas parts and sort of had a browse of data sheets and even bought some parts and left them in a component drawer over the last few years, I've never really jumped in to do any programming. Haven't acquired the tools, haven't looked at the IDE. I'd like to get a bit of a head start before we attend the seminar, so I sort of have a bit of a handle on some of it before we get there. And just recently one of the local sales reps for one of the vendors here was kind enough to send me this. It's a just a little evaluation board, promotion board for one of the Renesas parts. So I'm going to jump into that and load up the software and see if we can make something happen, just see what the tools look like. I'll just show you the evaluation board a little bit closer. And that's the chip that's on there that we're using. A couple of LEDs, a jumper and a pot, I assume, for some ADC fun. And there's the CD, let's put it in. Well, here's something interesting. I don't know if the kit is using IAR, but there's support in there. Alright, let's get this going. Alright, so it looks like it's going to install an instance of IAR embedded workbench for the Renesas parts. Well, that's a bit of a fail. As far as I can see, there's no license number in the package or on the CD or anywhere there, so it looks like I would have to email registration for a trial license. And that's a bit funny for a promotional board package. You'd think that the silicon vendor would package it in such a way that you wouldn't have to go to any trouble to start having a look at it. Let's have a look at then what the other... Let's have a look at what else it's installed. Okay, I've just plugged the board in and the drivers have loaded okay. I'll just have a look at some of the stuff on the chip. There appears to be a number of timer input capture and output compare pins, good for PWM and that sort of thing. A number of analog to digital inputs. There may be a comparator, not sure about that, maybe not. There's a couple of what appear to be serial pins, TX, RX, D pins. There's a number of SDA and SCL pins, which I would have taken to mean I2C, but there's a few of them, so I'm not sure what that's all about, whether they are in fact I2C or whether there's one module and you can route the pins, or there's many modules. The connector for the programmer appears to be, if you've got a programmer, this board I believe loads stuff via serial, but there's a JTAG, Renesas version of JTAG kind of connector on the end of the board, which is, as they say here, it's not installed. Number of jumpers for various options, and a couple of LEDs that we saw before, the oscillator, and that's about it. But it looks like there's enough there for us to play with. Okay, I've got the demo app up for the firmware that's already loaded in the board, and on the board there at the moment there's just one LED on and another one blinking, and it looks like it's already found it and connected to it, and the internal temperature there suggests it's 18 degrees or so. That might be the case, but if I put my finger on it, we'll see if that temperature starts to increase, and yes it does. There's also the external volts there, which I believe is for the variable resistor, and they've supplied in the package a nice little screwdriver for turning that. So if I suspect that's probably a multi-turn pot. If I give that a few good turns, and you can see that we've now jumped up to it's now jumped up to 2.58 volts. And it looks like it's taking samples every now and again, or at least it's transmitting the samples every now and again. Okay, so that's that. Real-time clock. Alright, half second, and alarms.
well, I don't know about that, but at the moment I think that interval has probably got to do with the LED that's here on the board. If I change that to 1 second, I suspect the frequency of that LED will change. Memory demo. So here we're just watching the microcontroller write bytes to flash and read them back out again for us. And here's just some stuff for RAM. Let's just change that to, oops, that's not F. FF, and right, and then we'll read it again, and that's changed, yay. I'm not going to do anything low power here, and I'm not sure what the self-test is going to do. But okay, I think I've seen it. This is a code initialization tool, I guess, or a beans tool. If I start a new project, it's just to help you get some code going, I guess. These settings I'm not sure about, and I think probably you need to be careful with them, because it says once it's decided, it's impossible to change it later. As soon as you click on these bullets, the option goes grey, so the setting's made and you can't change it. This window's a bit odd because there's options below, but the vertical scroll bar doesn't appear until you enlarge the window, and I guess the application's meant to be run at a higher resolution. I think in here, if I was going to do anything, I'd turn on the subsystem clock for that 32 kilohertz oscillator that we're using. You can probably leave that at low power consumption. I mean, that's what watch crystals are for. And I think that's about it. And the CPU and peripheral clock, the bus clocks, look like they're going to, with those settings, run at 32 megahertz. And if I come to here and say generate code, that'll it'll generate code, but the other options here won't appear until I choose something here. So I'll go with the default assignment, but I do wonder what I'm missing out with the serial functional enhancement assignments and timer functional enhancement assignments. I'm not sure what modules I'm turning on and off by doing that. But let's go to port, so we can set up some initial port settings, set up interrupts for various things. Serial, let's have a look here. Allegedly, okay, there you go. There's only 2 UARTs on this. Okay, just go back to unused. And I squared C, I squared C, I squared C, and I squared C. So it looks like there's 4 channels for I squared C, which are multiplexed with some of the serial. And let's have a CSI. I'm not really sure what that is. That might be something like LIN or one-wire serial. I'll have to go in and have a look at that, but obviously it's another type of serial. Just take them back to unused and have a look at these other tabs. More UARTs. Wonder what happens if I do UART 0 and 1 there. Apparently there's 3 UARTs. Alright, well, that's interesting. And we can set I squared C settings to masters or slaves. Okay, yeah, so I spent a bit of time there in serial, because serial is one of the things that I use a lot. Where were we? Serial, A to D. How many bits? VREF settings. When to trigger. How often to take samples. Interesting. And timers. So if I was to just do, let's see, if I was just to do software triggers, how many could I get? Okay, at least 4. That's good. And what about input pulse measuring? Okay, a few there as well. I won't muck around with that too much. I'll just take them all back to unused. And watchdog timer, that's always handy, useful. Some obvious settings there. It's got quite a few options for timeouts, that's good. Real-time clock. Ooh. Okay, some good options for code there for even setting days of the week, etc. I like that. Interval timer, let's see how low, well, maybe that's... okay, good. Gives us warnings for low values. Oops. Oh, okay, 99's okay, is it? What about 90? Wonder what... 50, so somewhere between 50 and 90. Let's say somewhere between 60 and 70 then. Alright, actually if I do 70, okay. That's good, I like that. You can use that I guess for a RTOS clock, or just a fast clock, or just for some general operations. Buzzer outputs, that's odd. I don't know that I've come across a microcontroller that had... I don't know if that's just manipulation of I/O or if that's an actual module, but that's interesting. DMA. Okay, that's also very interesting. And low voltage detection. Oh, maybe I gotta put that back to unused. Low voltage detection. I guess I have to put in a value. Alright, so well, I guess I could generate code for all that. I haven't really put anything in there. And from there, the only thing I don't like about this is that it makes a lot of files. If you wanted to, if you were the sort of person that wanted to manage your code in such a way that you don't like a lot of files, that the project you're working on isn't terribly complex, and there's not really any reason to spread out your code, you might get annoyed at all this. But I guess there's some things that you could, I don't know, use it for cut and paste. But it's a nice little tool. Sorry, I should also mention that you can compile for different compilers, and you can generate the files whether you're just changing one thing or you want to change everything, and there's some reports with some different file types. This is the other app that comes in the pack, WriteEasy5. It's the Flash programmer for the device. And I can't show you anything with this really because I can't get into IAR to write any code and flash any code into the board, unfortunately, and that's a real disappointment. I don't understand why they wouldn't have designed the pack in such a way that they either give you the license or the license isn't needed. Even if the programmer debugger is either feature crippled or time for use crippled. The loss of momentum for somebody who hasn't used these devices yet, isn't convinced of the need for them. It may just be I'm interested, I'm going to go and register for the license, but I feel like I shouldn't have to. But you'd have to imagine that there'd be a number of people who just have taken on this promotional pack just on spec, and if they get to a point where maybe they haven't got a lot of time and they just put it into the too hard basket, and that's a loss for the company. Maybe maybe it's a drop in the ocean, but yeah, I think that's all for me. For now, I might do another video after I get the license for IAR.